easy because it's how the system works. And with that, Selim, you're ready? You're ready, Selim?
Yes.
When Selim's ready, we can. I'll need to pass my mic to Selim. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will be talking about regenerative finance and how not to use Web3 technologies. So, as you may already know, Web3 is a new frontier in the digital world that allows us decentralized financial tools and give users more control over their data. With this technology also comes new responsibility. We need to be aware of the pitfalls and ensure that we are using it appropriately and ethically. Maybe some of you know this meme. It's a degenerate trader. In 2020, decentralized finance was Ethereum's trend of the year. And with that honor came 1,000 new terms and even more memes. But more importantly, the success of DeFi proves an essential quality of Ethereum. That real high-volume apps are possible on this network, new protocols were shipped, new tokens were issued, and the total value locked in decentralized finance protocols surged. Ethereum's culture evolved. People began speaking of degens, short for degenerate gamblers, as thousands of pseudonymous, money-hungry token holders blindly sold yield in questionable assets. Given how meme-driven this craze was, it was not long before it spread through the whole crypto Twitter. Prominent Ethereum accounts tweeted about their favorite degen opportunities and walked back statements after these unaudited projects were hacked. There was plenty of action to be had, though it was hardly fulfilling or sustainable. So the solution, I would call it, one of the solutions is regenerative finance. The financial approach that seeks to promote social, environmental, and economic regeneration by aligning investments with principles of sustainability, justice, and community empowerment. The concept of regenerative finance emerged as a response to the shortcomings of conventional finance, which often prioritizes short-term profits over long-term sustainability and social well-being. As its core, regenerative finance in Web3 is an approach to investing that uses investing with decentralized technologies to create positive social and environmental impact. With also getting some returns, of course. This can include investing in decentralized autonomous organizations called DAOs that are working to address climate change, social issues, or, for example, support sustainable agriculture. These are just some of the examples. Vegan finance is democratic, not technocratic. It is the community using peer-to-peer money to fund what the community needs funded, as opposed to the legacy world where billionaire philanthropists get to decide what is worthy of funding open systems should be funded by the crowd. Next slide. Yes, here on this slide we see some of the technologies that are supporting cryptocurrencies. Public goods are an important class of goods in economics. These are goods that are consumed by anybody and everybody. In our physical world, roads, bridges, clean air, clean water are all public goods. Open source software is the foundation of our digital infrastructure, the equivalent of public goods in the digital world. In the blockchain world, open source software is what powers the infrastructure upon which many tokens are built. Without foundational projects like ETH2 clients, common privacy tools, white hat hackers, or other tools by open source software developers, the cryptocurrency technology that is the foundation of your tokens, BEX, that we also call, will not be secure. In the startup world, give first means trying to help anyone, especially entrepreneurs, with no expectation of getting anything back. Regenerative finance is Web3's answer to Silicon Valley's give first. So enter Gitcoin grants. Think of Gitcoin grants as Ethereum's largest crowdfunding platform. A crypto-enabled Patreon that is focused on financing the infrastructure of the new financial internet. Contribution to grants is increasing with each round and is currently near $5 million per round. Slide, please. Here is a preference map of the 26,000 crowdfunding contributions during Gitcoin grants round 8. Note, there is no center to this mesh network of funders. This is what decentralized funding looks like. Another example is the Ethereum Foundation grants. Although supporting mostly Ethereum-related development and projects, and of course, some hackathons, and so on. Next slide, please. While talking about regenerative finance and grants, we should definitely dip our toes into quadratic funding. The concept was created by Vitalik Buterin, Hitzig, and Weil. The shortest explanation that I could come up is the more votes a project gets, the more matching contribution from grants goes to that project. In this example, all three projects get the same amount of contributions, as we see $1,000 as an example, but have different number of contributors. A has 5, B has 2, and C 20. The projects with the most number of contributors get also the most of the match grants funding. That means C has 20 contributors and gets the most amount from the grants matched. Next. Of course, we should not forget there are also some critics to refi, like carbon projects are incentivizing fictional conservation. An example would be a prominent early refi projects like ClimateDAO, and Toucan Protocol. The critique was here that they are sweeping the floor of the voluntary carbon offset market to clean up cheap and less reliable carbon offsetting projects. The next example of critics will be Web3 is energy intensive. So the elephant in the room is, of course, the carbon intensive nature of some blockchains. Here we can talk about Bitcoin versus Ethereum, proof of work versus proof of stake as a counter-argument to the energy insensitivity. Risk of, another example is risk of turning nature into assets. Nature is intrinsically valuable and does not need to be associated with a financial value in order to be protected and thrive. Crypto colonialism. An example would be it plays into ongoing narratives of green grabbing, where local claims to resources are liquidated for green investments. Also, a new power asymmetry is enabled by the technology through data colonialism and surveillance capitalism. Next slide, please. So the landscape. It's quite many projects, but you can go also to the link below and see the large poster for it. Despite its many challenges, it is imperative to keep the refi experiment going. As of today, the refi ecosystem is incredibly diverse. We have protocols, DAOs, scientists, economists, and developers. Building bridges with its critics and their arguments can only strengthen this foundation and help bring it closer to its utopian horizons. Next slide, please. So here a bit of self-marketing for the company. What are we as CypherX doing? Very short and basic. We help to find the best solutions for your Web3 projects. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, you can ask now or I will be there at the corner. Okay. Thank you very much again, and see you.
Thank you, Selim, and CypherX for being a sponsor and also for how long we find. Our next talk will be at 11:30, and it's going by Etherscan, Introduction to API, right? And yep, I'm going to leave it to them to talk about that. And we have until 11:30 for the next talk. So for now, it's been easy, do whatever we want. We'll be back at 11:30. Good to see that we have a lot of hackers here working really hard and also joining the workshop. So right up next, we will have Etherscan, who is also one of our sponsors. Thank you so much, Etherscan, for sponsoring our event. Thank you. And we will have Nicholas. because it's particularly special because it not only works for Etherscan, but it also graduates from APU. So it's a homegrown pen from APU. Okay. Yeah, you go APU. What I want to say. Okay, without further ado, I'll just let me just introduce himself. I think whatever is into the group, let him go just. You guys take it away.
Okay. All right, thank you, GM, everyone. GM. Right. So, how are we hacking today? What are the projects we're building on? What are the stuff we're doing today? Anyone has already got your ideas finalized? You've got great ideas already to share. Okay, so many are not too prepared yet. Okay, so just a quick show of hands. How many of you here are Web3 native and you already know what Etherscan is? And you already have used Etherscan, you have, you've been looking up transactions. Show of hands, guys, a little bit higher so we can see you. Okay, so familiar faces, familiar people have used Etherscan. So the rest of you, I will assume that you're more from a Web2 background. You have not seen or used Etherscan much, like for those of you here or those of you in the middle, those of you at the back. I guess you've not seen Etherscan too much. Yep. So Etherscan is essentially a block explorer, which you can look up transactions, you can look up your balances, you can look up your NFTs that you've bought. And for many of you who didn't know, who actually knew that Etherscan had APIs? Did anyone know that Etherscan already has APIs? Yep, familiar users there. You guys are awesome. So how many of you here already know that Etherscan has APIs? Awesome, awesome. So good, half the room. How many of you have never heard of APIs at all? Or how many of you here are, let's say, how many of you here are devs versus you are non-devs? So if you are devs, raise your hands. If you are purely devs and you guys build stuff, you eat, sleep, and dream code. All right, so about half the room. Okay, so we'll make this a little bit less, we'll make it more introductory and we'll make it more friendly to all of you who have never seen Etherscan. So Etherscan, as I mentioned, is a block explorer where you can look up transactions and NFTs. But with APIs, you'll be able to do this via code. So meaning that, let's say you're going to write, I think most of you are going to be building on web, or some of you might be building on mobile. You can call Etherscan's APIs to essentially use Etherscan without going to Etherscan. So essentially, you are going to use code to be able to automate things like, let's say, you're checking user transactions and so on. Okay, so before that, just a quick introduction. I'm Nick from Etherscan. If you've seen me or if you think that I'm familiar, I'm from EKL as well. You might have seen me doing the monthly roundups. I think some of you are familiar faces too, I've seen from EKL. And if I'm extra familiar, I'm also from APU as an alumni. Okay. All right, so so today I'm going to share some of the few API endpoints that I find to be very helpful to get blockchain data from the internet. And it's going to be it's going to be a bit of a workshop style. So if you want to follow along, you can actually go to this link here. You can actually go to docs.etherscan.io and you can view the full documentation that we're going to follow along. So if you want to try out the queries in real time, you want to try this with the data, you want to try this to actually get the data that you're going to pull for your project, you can actually go to this link and you can try it out in real time with us. So it's going to be hard to type on one hand, so bear with me. All right, so the first thing that I find, of course, very, very, very helpful and very important is the transactions that you can get from Etherscan. So if I'll open up Etherscan first, for those who have never seen Etherscan, and I will open up the sample address page, or does anyone have an ENS that you want to share? Okay, so what is your ENS? Wait, sorry, I didn't get that. Okay, I need to hand that. Sorry, what was the name again? PIA. Okay, I think.
This is live stream, by the way, so just bear in mind that.
No, it's okay.
prpark.it, awesome. So we are looking at the full address history, transactions, NFT tokens, buys, swaps, and the full history of prpark.it. Thank you. All right, so those of you who have never seen Etherscan, this is the interface of Etherscan, and you can essentially see, first of all, of course, your address. You can see that this is linked to an ENS. Where is your Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, I'm not used to the new UI. So essentially, you can see your ENS here. This is prpark.eats address. You can see her balances. And of course, the most important here is, let's say if you were to build a portfolio app, or you were to build a, let's say, a transaction, a DEX tracker, similar to what there is on Etherscan, you can essentially see that you can see all the transactions here that PI has performed in the past. So if you want to display this via your app, you can actually go to an endpoint here under the accounts. Let's scroll down to get a list of normal. So this will display all the transactions that an address has performed. So you will essentially be able to get everything you see here, including this tab, the internal transactions tab, token transfers, so you can see tokens that PR has transferred, NFT transfers that PR might have bought, so you can see she has an ENS and she has a very cool looking, ghost. Yeah. So let's say if you were to build an NFT tracker or you want to build an NFT portfolio searching system, you can use so in this case, this token is an ERC721 if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. So we can go under the ERC721 transactions tab. We can open it up. Can everyone see this, or is it better if I use? I will, move this away. I will actually move this over to my caller. So once I paste this here, I'll just need to modify a few things. For example, I want to modify her address. In this case, it's over here. So you just need to change up a few parameters. For example, in this case, I will delete the contract address. We will not need this. And then, so essentially the next parameter that it wants to accept is an address. So in this case, I'm going to go to Etherscan and copy over PR's address. Let me grab that here. So unfortunately, we don't support ENS via API queries, so you will need to convert that first. So once I do that and I press send, and I pull this right over, so hopefully you can see it. So as you can see here, I'm able to pull up a query for the ghost token. It's not too clear, the slide is a bit skewed, but if you can see, there is the token ghost here, and you can see details about it, such as the token name, which transaction it was sent from. For example, if I copy this transaction hash, and I look it up on Etherscan, you would see the exact transaction in which PR received this NFT. That was about, so you can also determine when this was bought. So Pia is an OG and she has been in Ethereum for at least a year, 365 days ago. Happy cake day. Cool, cool. So not only would you get the first NFT that Pia owns, you will also get all the NFT transactions. So if I scroll down, you can see that the subsequent transactions are also displayed. Currently, this is displayed by the oldest transaction first. I can actually flip this around. You can display the first transaction first, or you can display the latest one first. You can also query this by a specific block. So for example, you figured out that a certain NFT mint was done in, let's say, block 1, whatever number that is. You can also query it by a specific block, and so that you can reduce your data. You can specify which block you want to see NFTs from. All right. So apart from that, normal NFT transactions. So I also share here some use cases that you might want to use some of these ideas for, let's say, your hacks and so on. You can use these normal or token NFT transactions for, let's say, doing analytics. You can determine how many transactions have been performed to an address. Oops, someone set off the alarm, but so hopefully it'll go off. Okay, but anyway, you can also determine trading activity on DEXs. So for example, has anyone here used Uniswap? Who has used Uniswap here? Still the same amount of hands, okay, good. So if you have used Uniswap, you will also be able to use the Etherscan APIs to pull all the token transfers. So for example, you can analyze how much a person has traded. And the last thing I would suggest is that you can use it for spam prevention. So for example, you could set, let's say, your app can only be used by someone who has performed a transaction on mainnet and so on. so that you will not have spammers who just create an infinite amount of addresses, and then they'll be able to spam your app with transactions. All right, next, a very, very cool endpoint too is something called the address portfolio. So if I go under, should be under tokens. Where is tokens, token holder list? No, not this one. Where is our thing in the new UI? Okay, it's here. Oh, got some. Okay, so has anyone seen this page on Etherscan? Oh, let me scroll down. So Etherscan also has a kind of a portfolio tracker which can display all the current ERC20 tokens that you already have. For example, I can't see that one. For example, in this case, Pia has a few tokens. Some are unknown tokens, so that's why they're not displayed as full tokens here. But also, you can also see the full NFT assets that are owned here. And so essentially, you can also pull this sort of portfolio and information from the APIs. That specific endpoint is called the token, ERC20 token holdings. So rather than you querying an address such as USDT, USDC, you need to make hundreds, if not millions of queries to be able to get all the ERC20 tokens that exist from an address. You need to go to the USDC contract and query like, hey, what's the balance, USDT, and all of it. But if you don't want to do that, you can just use the Etherscan APIs, and then this will show you all the current tokens that are owned by an address. This also works for ERC 721, by the way. So let's say if you are if your project is going to involve NFTs. Is anyone doing NFTs here in the room? Anyone doing NFT related projects?
No, it's not a recommended topic.
Oh, it's not a recommended topic? Okay. Well, why? Why not? Okay. But if you are planning to use this in the future, or if you want to go against the recommendation, you can of course use the ERC 721 endpoint. So this will be able to give you the information you see here, where you can essentially see all 3 NFTs here. So rather than transactions, you will see a list of full NFT tokens that you can that an address currently owns. So other than Pia's address, does anyone want to volunteer the address for the next one? Any other ENS volunteers here? Anyone? Anybody? Going once, twice. Okay, not that one. Anyone else have an ENS here that you want to share? Okay, we can take, but it'll be a bit heavy. But yeah, Vitalik.it is totally a valid address. So we can pull up Vitalik's addresses. Here he is on the blockchain. Very, very wealthy. Okay, so I will use that for the next endpoint I'm about to share. And the next endpoint is called, okay, this would not be so useful for an address, but this next one is about token information. So if you've been to a token page on Etherscan, let me just pull that up. Let's take the Tornado Cash token. Okay, so if anyone has seen the token page on Etherscan, you will notice that there is a, first of all, of course, there are metadata such as the name, symbol, addresses, and actually, if you go under the, oh, this is not the best view. Let me open up the token tracker instead. Yes, this one. Under the info tab. Where do we move it to? Top right? No, I'd say the name, the addresses, no, the emails, all that. This one?
This one.
More.
No.
Oh. Okay, so yeah. So for tokens, let's say if you are trying to look up, you're trying to build, let's say, a scam token detector. Because I'm sure many of you, when you swapped on Uniswap or you swapped on BSCScan, when you swapped on PancakeSwap, you would have seen that there are certain scam USDT addresses, similar tokens. But how can you verify which one is true? So if you look up for things on, so if you use the token info endpoint on Etherscan, you'll be able to see that there are, besides the addresses and things like symbols, there are also things like the email addresses of projects, websites. In some cases, like if you take if you were to take, let's say, tokens like Optimism's token, you would be able to see that, oh, Optimism's not here. But let's say if a token has governance forums, if a token has information forums, analytics, you will be able to see them here. Or if, let's say, this is a token that is tradable, you would see that there is a Uniswap link here. So you can directly trade this token on Uniswap. And all this information is available on the token info endpoint right here. Not this one, but this one. So if you see under the sample response, if it's visible, you will be able to get things like total supplies, token types, if this is an NFT, if this is a contract. And also, if you are building, let's say, a trading app, or let's say you're building an analytics app, there is also a token price. So if you're looking for ERC20 token prices, it exists here. You can use this endpoint to get prices. Okay, next. So one thing we all have a love and hate relationship with is gas. Everyone hates paying $7 of gas for transferring tokens, but here is how you prevent it. How you prevent it is you pay the right amount of gas and choose the optimal time to send transactions. So you obviously don't send transactions when it's like 400 Gwei, because it will cost you like $30, $50, $100 in gas and swaps. So using the gas oracle, Etherscan has a gas oracle, I'm not sure if you've seen. So the gas oracle for Etherscan is right over here at the top. So this tells you the current gas price, and I'm sure some of you have used it for, let's say, sending fast, slow, and medium speed transactions. So this is very important for you to make sure that you don't overpay on gas for your users. So as the app developers, I'm sure you will build things that will involve transactions. You will eventually send a transaction to mainnet and so on. And if you overpay for your users, they're going to get mad at you because you're wasting their gas. And also, if you underpay, your transaction will never get confirmed. And this would be a problem, because then it's like, they'll be like, hey, your app's not working and so on. So using the gas oracle, you'll be able to tell, depending on how fast you want your transaction to be confirmed, you can pay the right amount of gas for the right speed of transactions you need. So here's a sample endpoint on Etherscan. If you go under gas tracker, and then you use the gas oracle right here. So let me copy it out. Copy it out to here, and I drag this over, paste it in. So if you can see here, the gas oracle at the moment on the website is 25. So once I create on Etherscan, you can also see here that there are the slow, medium, fast gas prices in the decimals here. So the exact same thing, you won't need to go Etherscan for your D app, and you can just query it from your app itself. So this, of course, besides building, let's say, gas estimators, gas dashboards, one of the very core features that you probably want to use is what gas price to pay, and paying the right amount of gas at the right time. All right, next on we have the contract APIs and source code. So how many of you here know how to write Solidity? How many of you here have written Solidity? How many of you here are smart contract devs, true Web3 devs? Okay, good. You've all written Solidity. No, it doesn't matter. If you've written Hello World, it's fine. Okay, that works as well. Because I just say if you've written, yeah, cool. Okay, so a good amount you have written Solidity. And if you have written Solidity and you find it useful for your project, Etherscan is, of course, the place where you verify your contracts. So whenever you perform verification, so let me show a verified contract. Let me go up under, it should be under blockchain verified contracts. There we go. So whenever you deploy contracts, it's highly recommended that you verify them. And when I say verify, it just means that you publish a source code here. If you go under the contract tab and you go under code, you can see that most projects, they open source their Solidity code here. So all of this is done through Etherscan. And of course, when you do it through Etherscan, we also have an API for you to pull this. And also if you want to, let's say you are building an analyzer or a linter that you can check these contracts, and you can You could do, let's say, you submit a token address and then it analyzes the code for any malicious code. There are similar patterns such as honeypot tokens, which you can see and then you can detect these patterns and warn your users in this case. But another very important thing that if you are, but this is a bit technical, you must have used read-write contract things, which is here. So in order to perform read-write contracts, such as to read a contract's current value, or if you want to write a transaction, let's say you build a contract that does staking, that does swapping, it could be locking up things, time locking things. So all of that, whenever you perform read-write contracts, you would need something called an ABI. So an ABI is something down here. Let me scroll all the way down through this mess. Here it is. So if you are planning to perform read-write contracts, or you're planning to do any action that involves sending a transaction on-chain, you will need this information and you can pull this through the Etherscan ABIs. So that is under this portion here, under contracts, yes. So both the endpoints I mentioned above are under the ABI here. And if you were to query the source code endpoint, let me just do that. And I paste it into, oops, this one has spaces. Okay, let's not do this portion. Where is my tab? Okay, here it is. So yeah, as I mentioned, the ABIs and both the source code and ABIs endpoint is available in Etherscan as well because you perform verifications here. And if anyone actually gets stuck with contract verification, let's say you've deployed your contract but you can't get it verified, I think we'll have a small like office hours later so that we can help you out with that also. Yeah. Okay, next I think we have one last endpoint. Okay, so this one is a bit more technical. This one is more suited for Web3 devs who are more advanced or who, let's say, you have used things like logs. So logs are essentially, logs are not the analytics of how well your chain does, but logs are more of events that are happening. So let's say if your contract were to have performed a swap, it would emit events and things that happen. It's similar to, let's say, you've seen like security logs where you've seen like a user did this, a user did that, a user did a swap, a user transferred a token. So this is what logs are for, and you can of course query logs through Etherscan because it is on-chain information. And some of the examples of logs that you can use for is to display analytics. So for example, if I go to a popular contract address, let's take anyone have suggestions? USDC. Oh, we can go to guest tracker as well. Yeah? So actually, one cool feature, if anyone has not used under the guest tracker, is actually we also show which contracts have used the most gas. In this case, I can see it is, let's take Blur. So for anyone who got the Blur airdrop, you might want to build something in return for them. So it is, I think this has not been open source. Let's not take that. Let's take Seaport, which is a fancy name for OpenSea. Oh, these are not. Oh, they are also. Yeah. So essentially, this is OpenSea's contract, and essentially, if you want to look at the logs here, you can see that for OpenSea, there are these events, which I'll zoom in. There are these events that OpenSea admits, such as match advance, all this. So this is essentially OpenSea, people trading on OpenSea, and you can actually pull these event logs to see what specific tokens that people have traded, and also when this trade was performed, how much did they pay for this NFT, and so on. So logs are a little bit more advanced. They do look like a bunch of gobbledygook if you've not worked with it before, but they are very, very powerful if you want to display information that contracts, ongoing information about contracts and what's going on, what is being performed, what's popular with certain contracts. So some of the examples I listed here is that it includes doing, let's say, analytics on bridging activities. So you can perhaps analyze how many people have bridged to Optimism, how many people have bridged to OpenSea, not to OpenSea, to, let's say, to Polygon. how many people have bridged to ZK Sync? Another thing that you can also do is, let's say you want to display your projects. So eventually when you deploy your own contract, you also, hopefully, if you develop things well, you should emit logs, and also you will then be able to display your user actions and statistics based on your own protocol. All right, so at this point, does anyone have any specific use cases or specific data points that you are looking for? We can do a quick demo and a quick live session on anyone who have, let's say, you want to get the ETH balance for an address. If anyone has like a live suggestion, we can do it. You can try it out here. Anyone already have specific data points that you want to get? Let's say you want to get the latest block number, you want to get the latest trades from Uniswap, the latest token transfers from an address. Anyone? Yes.
Get a token balance.
Yes.
Specific pass block.
Awesome. Thank you for that suggestion. A very good one. Okay, so I'll repeat the live data requirement here, and that is to get a certain token balance at a pass block at a pass block. Yes, okay, that makes sense. Okay, at a pass block number. So essentially, this is, for example, querying like how much OP tokens did PR have in the past? How much ENS tokens did, what's your name again?
Wait.
Oh, Wei, okay. So that's a cool name, like the gas Wei. Very cool, okay. So let's say we are trying to query how much tokens did Wei have in the past. Okay, so Etherscan has a very specific endpoint for that. And that is under the token transfers. So if I go under the token tab, there is a historical, so besides getting the current token balance, there is an endpoint here to get the current ERC20 token balance. There is also a historical token balance. So right over here, there is a historical balance for ERC20 tokens, or not supply, but the next one. This one. So you can query this. This is an endpoint that you can use to query tokens by a specific block. This needs an API Pro key, so I will take the computer screen offline for a bit to use my key. Alufi, can we disconnect for a while? Okay, give me just 1 minute, guys. I need to get the key without showing all of you my Etherscan account passwords. So that, just give me a moment to pause the recording. It's not showing, right? Okay. 1 moment, guys. I am not open sourcing my keys. Okay, sign in. Oh, actually, I can go to Slack. Oh, are you already signed into Etherscan? I realized that I forgot to get the keys beforehand. Or actually, I can take these. Oh, yeah, I can. I think close this. And then.
Got it.
Okay, can we enable it back? Okay, so coming back to where we are. Okay, so I'll go back to the endpoint I left off just now. So there is a historical ERC20 token balance. So if I use this endpoint, it takes a couple of parameters. So let's say the first thing it wants is your contract address. So do you have any specific token that you are looking for? Okay, let's take, what is a popular token? Okay, let's take WE. So we are querying the wrapped Ether balance. So we will take the contract address of wrapped Ether, give it a while to search. But if it doesn't, I will skip over that and directly look for it. Let's take a token. Okay, let's take staked Ether. So I will copy the contract address of staked Ether and then go over to our query here. I will first replace the contract address with staked Ether's address, And the next thing you want to do is which address you want to query for stake ether. So let's take Vitalik's address, and we see how much stake ether he has owned in a past block. I think I already have his address here. So this is best if you already own a token in the past. I think I have his address here. Yes, it should be one of these. So the next thing is any address that you want to query for. And after that, it should be just these two, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, after that is, of course, the block number. So this one you can specify up to a certain block, like exactly which block you want to query for a past balance. So let's take one of the block numbers here. Let's say 2 minutes ago. We will take this block. So block number 16645914. Paste it in. And then if I take this out to my query, just so that you can see it easier. Paste it, send it. Oops, I need to replace my key in. So let me grab my key here. Please do not screenshot this because it works. Oh, it's live stream, okay. Oh, valid key. Just a moment, let me try and replace this. Oh, I accidentally deleted the whole thing. Undo, and I will just remove. I think this should be valid because I used it yesterday. Oh, it's double pasted. So if I go back here, I think it's an issue with the URLs. Let me directly replace it here first. Paste in the key I have, copy it out, and replace it here. Send. Okay. I copy this wrongly. Just a moment, guys. Send. Okay, I think we made a bit of a mistake with the address format. So let me go to Etherscan and take an address. Let's say we take OpenSea's address first. Copy the address. So after control address, balance history. Okay, paste here. Yeah, this works. Okay, so now if I move it over to my query here, I paste this, send. Okay, so in this case, we can determine that wrapped ether. We can determine that the OpenSea address, which is, where is the OpenSea address? I need to start closing tabs. Okay, so this is the OpenSea address, and we can determine that it has not owned any staked ether at this specific block, which is block number 16, whatever that is. So we can determine that there was no staked ether owned by this address. But let's try and get a working example. So if we see, yeah, we could. But let's take this address. I think we can use this address then. Okay, so I'm going to do an example where I can see the block, a transfer that exists in the past. So this is a transaction that transferred wrapped ether to this address, OpenSea deployer to Avalanche Bridge. So this was transferred at block 16153, whatever. So I will go one block behind just to show that this address previously owned wrapped ether. So let me copy that block. And then I will replace it here. Read this and replace the block number. I will then replace the contract address of staked ether with wrapped ether. So let me grab the contract address of wrapped ether. And and then replace it here, not this one. This one, replace it. Then I will copy the whole query over and paste it here. Oh, still 0. Let's see if we made a mistake. Is it this address? So I'm just checking the addresses, if it's correct. .39, and then contract address is Rapiter. Yeah, that looks right. Let's go a few blocks. Oh, yes. So the mistake here was actually with the block we used. So at block 151908, this token has already been transferred out. So if I go back by one block, I will show that it still exists. So once I query, you can see, oh, let me move this over. So if I move this over to my query, so you can see here that the OpenSea deployer address previously owned 1 Rapiter, and after that, the next block, it was transferred out. So what this endpoint helps you is that it can help you to query previous balances, all the past tokens that you've had in the past, how much tokens you've had, and how much you currently own. So this helps you query up to every single block. Let's say you want to distribute. So this is actually helpful if, let's say, you want to distribute, let's say, airdrops. So you want to airdrop any pass holder that's previously held, let's say, 500 of the tokens in the past. So then you can then do this, and you can distribute airdrops to your token and raise funds for your project. So yeah, that is. So those are the 5, or actually 6. Those are the 6 endpoints that I found very useful when I was personally starting out to build with Etherscan and so on. So I hope you find this useful. And if you want, you can reach out to me on Telegram too. We can talk about not only just the APIs, we can also talk about, let's say, Web3 challenges. Let's say you have certain challenges with getting the latest blocks. You have certain use cases in mind, like getting pending transactions and so on. So we're open and talking about that because I was not only represent Etherscan, but also represent ETL. So we are here to help you. We want to help you with all the tools out there from our sponsors. Let's say today is Etherscan, CoinGecko. CoinGecko also has APIs, Scroll, Starkware, Certic, and so on, okay? So all these tools out there are here to help you to build out your tools and to turn your project into a reality that we can all use. All right, thank you, everyone. You want to go this way? Oh, yes. So one thing I missed that Harry kindly reminded me is that some of these endpoints that I showed you earlier, particularly, let's say, the token info, token balances, some of these do require an API Pro key, meaning that you need to have a paid plan for Etherscan. But for Etherscan, we are giving away 1 week of API Pro for anyone who, I'll send out a Google Sheet later or a Google form where you can pass in your email address and your Etherscan account, and you'll be credited with 1 week of API Pro. So you can use this for your project tomorrow and so on. That's now the question. Okay, so we'll send this link in the Telegram, I think it's the Telegram group for the hackathon, yeah. We'll send this out in the hackathon group later on. Do you want to do it? Okay. Oh, yeah.
All right, and moving on. So we're also, for those of you who don't know, Etherscan is a primarily Malaysian team with office in Kota Kemuning, Shah Alam. And we are hiring. So if anyone who is after the hackathon interested to join the team, whether you want to intern or you want to do work full-time, whether it's a technical position or not, please feel free to reach out to us after this. We are happy to talk to you and see how we can find a good fit. I'm just going to leave it up for a couple more seconds. And as mentioned by Nick, so the rest of the hour until 12:30, it's Etherscan office hours. So if you have any questions about Etherscan or about understanding transactions or blocks or event logs, please feel free to ask us. We're okay to answer even the most basic questions if you don't know anything about transactions, up to the more advanced ones. Yeah, so please feel free to use the time to ask us any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Any more? Do we have questions from the crowd for the Etherscan
No,
team?
it's okay, they can just come.
Or you can just come to for the office hours. They'll be right here to assist you. Right now we are we got a nice 15 minutes ish to lunch. But for now, feel free to mingle around and ask questions. Etherscan team, everyone here, to the CypherX team, if you have any, to mingle around networking. I think that's core culture of hackathon in real life. To meet new friends and to get networks. So yeah, for now, just hang tight until we talk to the and we head down for lunch, and then we'll come back here. Oh yeah, one more thing to mention. So we are postponing the next talk by Selim, John, from 2 to 2:30 p.m. So we have a slightly longer lunch. So just to let you know. Cool. I think that's all, and I will see you at lunch.